Hey guys, first of all, I just want to say this is not a video that's bashing vegetarians or vegetarianism at all, okay? All this is for all the people now that are on some kind of a fad diet, okay? And I'm not saying a fad diet, but I'm talking as in like it doesn't work, okay? But a fad diet is in everybody's doing it and it's cool. Why are you doing this, okay? Because the fact of the matter is vegetables have been around for a long time, okay? But nobody was really serious about fitness or whatever tended to be a vegetarian until very recently. And yeah, I know, was it Bill Pearl, I think, was a very famous vegetarian bodybuilder, but I mean, he was one of like, everybody was drinking, heavy cream with protein powder, drinking raw eggs, eating steak and eggs, back then. And he was like the only one who thought his own mind. And I respect that. He was a vegetarian bodybuilder back then when nobody was a vegetarian. And that's great. But my question is, why is it now that all of a sudden we have so many vegetarians, okay? And if you're a vegetarian and it's working for you, that's great. I think it's wonderful. If you're like, dude, I started slowly eating more vegetables, eating less meat, then I cut out the chicken and fish, and I feel great now. Wonderful. Stay a vegetarian. I'm not saying you shouldn't. What I'm saying is, years ago, okay, like there was no if it fits your macros, okay? And nobody had the strength of character to be like, well, listen, I'm gonna eat less food, and if I feel like having a piece of cake, I'm gonna eat that too. And I'm still gonna have abs because I'm gonna watch my calories, I mean, people, if somebody said, was a serious fitness guy or a serious bodybuilder years ago and said, well, I'm gonna, cut down, I'm just gonna watch my calories, and be like, what are you doing? Like Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers? Because that's basically what Weight Watchers is. It's basically calorie counting, and if it fits your macros is basically calorie counting. Now, I know you're like, oh, I do my ratios of protein and everything. No, you don't. A lot of people who do if it fit your macros basically say, I want to make sure I have X number of grams of protein a day and not exceed so many calories, and however I get the other calories don't matter, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that if it works for you. But my problem is, why is it that for years you would very rarely see a vegetarian bodybuilder? These days, hey man, you gotta be a vegetarian, you gotta be a vegan because you're not cool if you don't. It's like, listen, you could have been, so far as I care, you could be a vegetarian now, you could have been a vegetarian 10 years ago, okay? I don't care. I'm not, and I never was, okay? If it fits your macros, counting calories, it's always worked. Okay, but a few years ago, if you're like, hey, I'm counting calories, people would be like, oh my God, that's so stupid. Why are you doing that? You can't eat fucking, cake or anything like that. These days, everybody's into if it fits your macros. And if you're like, hey, I eat chicken and rice 6 times a day, hey man, that's bro science, that's bro food. You're so dumb because everybody's cool, and everybody that's cool does if it fits your macros these days. It used to be that like the steak and eggs diet was what, every bodybuilder did. Arnold did it, all the guys back in the day. I mean, look up Rick Drazen on YouTube and he'll tell you he was a pro wrestler when Arnold was nothing more than a bodybuilder, and everybody was on high fat, low carbs back in the day. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, that's going to kill you. You're not going to make any gains. Yeah, right. I mean, I don't want to be like a skinny fat guy like, Arnold Schwarzenegger or Franco Columbu, because those guys just fuck their whole lives up by eating steak and eggs. I mean, I don't get it. And this is the thing too. It's like, so, fine. If you want to do intermittent fasting, I remember like the first time I saw it in Instagram somewhere, I'm doing IF and I'm like, what's if? And then I had to look it up, find out intermittent fasting. There was a book called The Warrior Diet. It was written like decades ago, okay? I remember reading an article about it. There was a couple of articles about it, in the same magazine. And the guy, was like, yeah, just eat once a day and da-da-da-da. That's what our ancestors used to do, da-da-da-da-da. And I didn't do it. I was like, well, I'm not, going to do this. And nobody did. These days, everybody does intermittent fasting. It's so cool. You're not one of the cool kids if you don't do it. It's like, listen, it worked. If it works now, it worked back then. But nobody did it. Now it's so cool. Oh my God, if you eat chicken and rice, you're out of date. back when, you know, the warrior diet came out, you had to eat chicken and rice 6 times a day or you weren't one of the cool kids. These days, hey, you know, you're going to ruin your life and ruin your gains if you eat chicken and rice 6 times a day. You have to do intermittent fasting, which, like I said, is the same thing as the warrior diet that's been around for years. Plants have been around for years, but other than Bill Pearl, how many vegetarian bodybuilders were there? These days, hey man, you know, you got to be a vegan or you suck at everything. So this is the thing I'm saying. I don't care if you calorie count, do intermittent fasting, if it fits your macros, vegetarian, you know, or any combination. Okay, the fact of the matter is, I just think you should do it because you made a conscious decision that that's what you're going to do, not because you want to be cool. And in closing, let me just make a really great example of this. For the people who know who Mike Mentzer was, he was one of the guys who was a real big proponent of heavy duty training, okay? You know, the guy who created Arthur Jones, I think was his name, the guy who created the Nautilus equipment was like the guy who really came up with it. You know, Dorian Yates was a guy who really made it really big. Basically, what it means is like you work to absolute utter total failure on like 1 or 2 exercises per muscle group and you get out of the gym, okay? Now, I'm not saying it works. I'm not saying it doesn't work. We're not talking about that right now. All I'm saying is when Mike Mentzer was a trainer, okay, he was said in a magazine article one time that people were like complaining. They're like, I pay for an hour of your personal training and you're only working with me for like 20, 30 minutes. What the hell? I'm not getting my money's worth. And he's like, yes, you are getting your money's worth because you're getting the training effect. In, you know, 20, 30 minutes, I'm breaking your muscles down to the proper point. You know, any less, you wouldn't get a training effect. Any more, you would be overtrained. This is just the perfect amount. And you know, you're not paying for an hour of training. You're paying for a session. If it happens to be less, then enjoy yourself. Be glad that you got more work done in less time. You know, and they're like, well, I think it's not right that I'm paying for an hour, but you're only staying with me for, you know, a half an hour. So he started asking some of these people why it is that, you know, that they were, you know, paying him for training if they're not happy with his training. And he found out that, I mean, I don't know if it was LA or wherever he was training people, the cool thing to do was to have Mike Mentzer as a personal trainer. Because that's when, you know, heavy duty training first came out and people were like, hey, you know, wow, let's do this stuff. And Mike Mentzer's really awesome. So you're one of the cool kids if he's your personal trainer. That's the reason why they were doing it. Not because it was the best kind of training, not because they were getting results. They didn't care about results. They just cared that when they went to their little cocktail parties, they're like, oh, I'm just as cool as you because I drive a Mercedes and Mike Mentzer's my personal trainer. You know, that's the reason why they're doing it. So this is my question. Are you a vegan? Are you doing if it fits your macros? Intermittent fasting? Hell, steak and eggs diet. I don't care. You know, are you doing body weight training? Are you doing Olympic weightlifting, CrossFit? I don't care what kind of training, what kind of diet. But my question for you is, are you doing this, okay, because you've made the decision that this is the most effective, best, healthiest way for you to reach your goals, okay? Or are you doing this because all the cool kids are doing this? If nobody else in the world was doing whatever diet and training that you're into, would you still be doing it because you possess the strength of character to make your own decisions and your decision is that this is the best? Or are you going to drop this just like following the next damn boy group like a 16-year-old girl because last month the the Backstreet guys, whatever, were cool and next month, you know, 5 Street, you know, Uptown is cool or whatever the hell these things are called? Are you going to drop your diet and drop your training next month if it's not cool anymore? Or are you going to stick with it because, hey, this is the best thing that's worked for me and I'm going to keep doing it until I find something better?